Welcome to the Reclaimed Heirloom. My name is Christina. I want to show you how I transformed this old buffet side table with chalk paint and the ragging technique. I have already started with a base coat of Country Gray by Annie Salone, and I want to make a chalk paint wash in graphite as well as in Honfleur and Versailles. A ragging technique is pretty simple, just with some dry either shop towels or rags and some wet ones. All my paint washes are 50% water, 50% paint. And I'm just going to start off here with the black chalk paint is the graphite, and I'm going to work in small sections. Using the dry towels or rags will help create this beautiful, beautiful texture. When using the wet towels, that's also going to help remove out some of the color tone and enlighten that a little bit. And that's where I'm trying to create this effect where the outside's a little bit darker and the inside is a little bit lighter. So for my first layer of the ragging technique, I'm actually just going to start with the two base colors of the graphite and this Honfleur. And again, I'm using that combination of the dry and the wet towels, and I'm just really focusing on the textures and how I want my color design to kind of flow onto this particular piece. If you want to add a little bit more in the section that you're working on, by all means, you have lots of play with the chalk paint ragging. It's very, very forgiving. If you want to add a little bit darker, you want to take away, you have all the control. I'm also going to show you a little later on in the video some really great tips and tricks of what I'm doing with this particular design. And we're also going to redesign the hardware to a beautiful softened metal refresh look. Working in the small sections across your piece, I find a little bit easier to help manipulate the design that I want to work with. And this way, the chalk wash that you've created isn't going to dry too quickly on you. So using the three color tones I've started with, the original base of the Country Gray, this graphite, as well as the Honfleur, so that black and brown wash that I'm adding, I really want to create this old, elegant, old world, nostalgic look for this buffet side table. So the thing I'm doing with this color design is I'm kind of going all over with that graphite, and now I'm just putting in that Honfleur for a little bit of an undertone shade. The more you move those rags around, the more textures you're going to be able to create. It is absolutely magnificent. Applying a color wash, there is no right and wrong. You literally just want to get your wash on there. And I like to go around the door frames as well as the frames of the drawers as well. And I generally try to do a little bit of a cross hatching a little bit, again, just trying to create a little added texture. And just use any paint brushes that you have at home. I'm just using a palm chippy brush here. Again, using the dry towel or rag that you're using will help lift and create that really nice texture, whereas the wet rags, what they're going to do is they're going to help you kind of manipulate the paint and kind of take it away and blend it through a little bit. So you really just want to play around with it. It's a lot of fun. So what I'm trying to create on all of the drawers and the doors of this side table is I want the hue of the dark to stay and remain around the edges and corners and around these obliques as well, and including the hardware. So it's giving that kind of natural worn and aged effect over time. And with this Honfleur, I'm mixing it in with that graphite, that black color wash, and I'm literally going going around and smashing it in there with my wet rag, and this is creating a blended effect. One thing I find very, very helpful is to actually use my finger with my moist rag and literally just get in there and kind of roll my finger around my edges, and this I find gives a nice blended effect when I'm using the ragging technique. So you can manipulate not just with the brush and the wash and the rags themselves. Try to use your finger into the motion of where the rag is going. You can use any brushes that you already have, and you can use any chalk paint product that you currently have or prefer to use, as well as color tones. With a project this size, it's always good to have a break, so I'm going to introduce you to my standard poodle, Raphael.
You go to the cookie couch. Cookie couch! Hurry up, you gotta go to the cookie couch! Good boy! You're so smart. You are so smart. Look at that cookie face. Just says, give me the damn cookie.
So again, I do stress that working in sections is a huge help with the color wash. And this way your color wash won't dry so quickly on you, and when you're going around and using your ragging technique, there's no right or wrong whether you start from the center or you start from the outside. Just go with the flow, go with what you're feeling, and just manipulate the paints how you would like to perceive them onto your piece. One very important rule with using color washes is because the paint and the water are just kind of sitting in between your sections, is to make sure to stir them quite frequently, because the paint will try to settle at the bottom of your Tupperware or cup or whatever you're using your paint wash in. Again, what I'm trying to do for this base coat is I want to kind of give this hue of where I'm going to go with the full color design. And I'm definitely going to go ahead and put a second coat once all of this is completely dry. And this is actually going to help define what I'm creating with this old world character and vintage look. So I definitely like where this is going, and I just want to let this dry thoroughly for about an hour, and then I'm going to come back and continue on.
So I'm going to go ahead and I am going to put on my second layer, and I'm just going to stick with my graphite and my Enfleur, which is the black and brown chalk paint. And I'm also made a Versailles wash. So I am heavily caffeinated and ready charged. Got my mix tunes because this is like a little self party I'm having and nobody else is invited, and it's super awesome. Let's get busy and let's get started on to our second coat.
I am a huge fan of Saint Germain and highly recommend it on iTunes when working on your projects. So what I want to do with the second coat of the color wash is I actually want to be a little bit more precise and very, very detailed where I'm going to actually place the color wash. I don't want to just place it all over in sections. I kind of want to manipulate the paint tones a little bit more directly here and really kind of filter in exactly where I want this look to go. Giving it that really old world character, I really want to shadow and darken out all my edges, both with that black and the brown chalk paint wash. And I'm actually going to go ahead and use just some standard artist brushes. You can use any ones. This way I can go around and do just that little bit of detail that I'm looking to do. And don't forget, it's really important to stir your paint washes because the paint does, again, want to settle to the bottom of the cup and let the water sit on the top. So this will help the concentration levels of your paint tones. So I really want to kind of shadow out some of that darker tone that I've already created. So by using this little bit of Faux color, which has got a little bit of a kind of a celery kind of tone to it. It's the best way I could describe it right off the top of my head. But as you can see, I'm just going around and I'm just kind of muting out and creating that it just naturally had an age, and also allowing another color tone into all of this. And again, the art of what I'm doing with this second coat of color wash is I'm being very particular about where I want my color wash to be placed. So with this second coat of the color wash, I'm creating more of a clouded kind of look with these color tones. And again, I just want to blend them in a little bit more, as well as, remember I mentioned about using your finger. Again, roll your finger, roll it in with your rag and just roll it and keep mashing those colors together. And with that little bit of texture and the diluted paint wash tones, you really can create a beautiful, beautiful effect. The one thing I can tell you to definitely do is relax and have fun with this. There is absolutely no right and wrong. You're really just creating some earthy tones to kind of mash together, and you're creating a look of how you want your furniture piece to be. This is so similar to putting like eye makeup on. You want to create the definition and the look in which you want the eye to show its beauty, and that's what you're doing with the furniture. I am literally using the rags at this point as if it was a makeup sponge pad, and I'm literally just manipulating the color wash to coming together and creating that hue around my edges and corners. And then I'm using that Faux to add more color, but in a kind of a muted way, and this is just giving that natural old aged and worn vintage effect. Anything that ages over time never ages in a straight line. So you kind of want to have a little bit of this irregularity going on within the dabbing and tapping and blending that you're doing. This is what I just find looks a lot more natural and naturally aged. Again, really important to stir your paint. It really does settle quite quickly, and I've learned the hard way as I continued on, even with my first coat and any other chalk paint washes that I've done, is that when I dip my brush back in, a lot of the water has actually come to the top. So I try very hard to remember to stir my paint washes as I'm doing this, so that way I'm getting that color magnification that I want. If you feel shy about doing this kind of technique even to furniture, I really recommend actually trying on a canvas board and treating it kind of like an abstract art. You literally can use any chalk paint colors that you want with this particular style and technique. It is very similar to watercolors, and you're just doing it with the chalk paint. It's really helpful as you're working in your sections at the speed that you're comfortable, is to switch out for new, clean, wet and dry rags as you're continuing on with your project. I did find as I was continuing on, and I am working on this project all at once, that having a water bottle on hand just to moisten my rags a little bit, because they are evaporating as I'm continuing, so just for a helpful hint as you continue. Again, don't be shy. Have fun and play with this particular technique. Chalk paint is designed so you have fun and learn and create. There's no right and wrong. It's just how you see the color tones that you want and the color palette that you see that you would like to design on your piece. This particular technique works beautiful on other projects as well. You could do this on vases, you can do this on picture frames. Again, you can even do this with a canvas board and have some fun and play around with it. There is absolutely no right and wrong, it's just the art of having fun. So I think for the bottom legs of this buffet side table, I think I'm just going to go ahead and put a graphite chalk paint wash on that. And I may just do 2 washes on it of just the graphite. So once you've completed your entire piece, it's really important with chalk paint that you need to seal it. So I'm going to go ahead and seal everything with the clear wax. You can also use a water-based lacquer if you'd like. And I'm going to add black wax to a few edges and corners and the entire tabletop. And I'm going to show you exactly what I do. So with the clear wax, you don't need a lot, but you definitely need to rub it in really, really well. So I try to use those circular motions and get around the corners and edges and around the frames. And then in about an hour or two, once everything has kind of dried a little bit, you can actually go back with another clean lint-free cloth and give it a nice buff. And it gives it a nice little bit of a sheen without taking away your matte finish. So I'm going to go ahead with my black wax brush here and all the edges and corners and the entire tabletop. I'm actually going to use black wax. So I like using the little brushes because it allows me to get into all those little corners and details. And anything I want to take away, I just grab some clear wax and give it a rub back, and this helps me play with where I want the black wax to settle. Because we have a nice base and the chalk paint is quite thick, I'm just going to lightly rub the black wax on the top and then go back with my clear wax and rub it back. So all that black wax is just going to sit in the low points of the paint on the top and just give it a nice vintage worn look. But I want the tabletop to remain that more country gray look versus the color wash. I'm going to add some of that black wax to the legs and the bottom frame of this piece as well, and then I'm going to move on to the hardware. So I'm going to use some of this amazing gilding wax and dark silver, and you don't need very much, just a little tiny amount, and you're just going to rub it in really, really well with your fingertip into all the hardware. And I also like to do the door hinges as well. So here are some staged photos, and I'm really happy with how the whole ragging technique on this piece turned out. And remember, chalk paint is about having fun. Feel free, if you have any questions, to leave me a comment in the comment box below.
Thanks so much for watching this video. If you've enjoyed, please give me a thumbs up, as well as don't forget to subscribe and share.